Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Shut the Front Door podcast, and I'm going to mix things up a little bit today. Scott, I'm going to let you do the intro.
I get to do the intro?
You get to do the intro.
Welcome to the Shut the Front Door podcast, real talk about real estate, coming at you live. Oh, wait, that wasn't right.
That's the real talk about real estate.
That was my DJ voice.
But Jimmy, always the number one supporter. Jimmy, yes, support your local bakeries, and happy hump day to you as well, my man. Anyways, today we have a rather provocative topic.
Aren't they all, though, really?
Well, we're trying to. And Mason just walked in. This is going to be our future producer, but we're live right now, Mason, so give us a minute. But at any rate, we're talking about cupcakes and fair housing, and what does that have to do with anything? So I'm not sure if you followed the news lately, but Whoopi Goldberg has made quite the media storm with the cupcake tirade. So there's a little. The jury's still out, I guess it depends, but the news isn't looking optimistic for Whoopi. So, Scott, I was telling you about this earlier. If you haven't followed, there was a Staten Island bakery where she had ordered cupcakes from, and she had stated publicly that they refused to make them for her. And it looks like that it might not have been so much of a refusal as much as a boiler issue. But what are the ramifications? And this trick was into our line of work because of what we refer to as fair housing. So, anyway, Scott, I'll let you introduce the topic. And
so in Whoopi's defense, if I go to get cupcakes and I get denied, I'm not going to be happy about it, right?
No, I don't think anybody would.
I mean, a man needs his cupcakes. Actually, for me, it's donuts. So I think what we see in the Whoopi Goldberg story, I think you did a pretty good summary. Whoopi goes to get cupcakes. She is, according to her, denied service by the bakery. And it turns out, at least it looks like, the bakery's boiler wasn't working. And so I think everybody was being denied cupcakes that day.
Right. The issue is that there were people that were placing orders that were getting the orders. So we don't know if those were made in advance. We don't know if that was they weren't taking new orders. Like I said, the jury's still out, so we're not here to cast any type of. Wonder if Whoopi is saying whoops. Yeah, I would wonder as well. But and we talk about this because in our line of work, there are things that we can't say or can say, or we have to nuance around. There's this entire field around this. So in Whoopi's defense, she based it off of a political view, which is not a fair housing, right, violation, but there are protected classes. So what are some of those classes, and where do we get started?
Well, so I'll give the same spiel I give to every seller I work with. When we list a property, I share with them, when we go through the fair housing language, I make it pretty simple, and I say, this is the language that explains you can't discriminate against anyone for pretty much any reason you can imagine. Right. So all your standard protected classes like race, religion, sex, military status is a protected class.
There you go, Jimmy.
There you go, Jimmy. So a seller cannot give preferential treatment or unpreferential treatment, that's not the right word, but whichever it is, to someone because they are or are not in the military. Right. Family status is a protected class.
Which gets really kind of strange, and we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, anything. And there's different levels of protected class. It's not just, so these are federal classes, but there's also state protected classes as well that differ from location to location.
So I'll be honest with you, I don't spend a lot of time trying to memorize all the protected classes.
Well, yeah.
What I tell my sellers, or advise my sellers, is that the only people we discriminate against are those that don't have any money. Because they can't buy your house.
Right. Which I would even discriminate as a harsh word. Well, we basically say we can't. But yeah, you're
tongue planted firmly in cheek.
There you go. So. And Jimmy, yes, you are very well protected. But right. So these protected classes, we cannot discriminate, which is the going to be the operative word of the day, which means to treat people differently than others based off of a particular thing. And not that we ever would.
To be clear, it's not hard for us. We don't discriminate against anyone.
Which is why we don't have these committed to memory, because we don't need to.
Correct.
Everyone is equal. But to deny that doesn't happen would be to deny, you're invited. I don't see it personally from where we are, but, again, some of this is going to be based off of personal feeling, where someone getting denied cupcakes using the language, I was refused refused cupcakes. What if, my car, just the other day, we were laughing about this. I did an open house on Sunday. My car ran out of gas after the open house. I made it to the open house.
Man, we got to get you some closings.
I know. I was in a hurry. But
don't worry, gas prices are coming down.
They are. But Beth had to save me. But I made it to the open house. I couldn't leave, which arguably makes me a better agent. But yeah, my car was stuck. Had I had an appointment, possibly with Whoopi, within the next hour, sure, and I couldn't make that, you could see how this kind of can get twisted. And we've had some of these things come up where it's not fair housing. It's basically life circumstances. So a lot of this can be based off of personal feeling and assessment. So we got to be real careful. And again, just maybe a disclaimer for this podcast. This is for educational purpose. We're not going to take the side of obviously any.
Yes, for sure. And so one thing that we are careful about, and I think this is maybe a great parallel to the Whoopi Goldberg story, is that whether someone is actually being discriminated against or not, and it's not for us to say whether she was or anyone else is.
Correct.
Part of our job is to prevent our sellers from the very accusation of such a thing.
Correct.
And so because of that, I often have sellers ask me, so we get an offer that comes in, and they'll say, so what are these people like? Is it a family or is it a young couple? And I say, I don't know, and I wouldn't tell you if I did.
Right.
Because if you don't know, then you can't be accused of discrimination. I had a client one time, one of my more memorable real estate stories. I'm showing a condo inside of a complex. They were buying it for their daughter, and the mom asked me, so are there very many Christians around here?
Right.
To which I replied, well, first of all, no way I'm answering that. Although I was a little bit interested to know if she was wanting, if it was a positive or a negative if there were Christians around. But I didn't ask the question because, again, I don't care. And I'm not going to even share that information if I have it with my seller, because if they don't know a demographic stat like that, and it might be religion or race or age or whatever else, but if they don't know that information, then they can't be accused of discrimination.
And we get these all the time, and buyers typically will want to also introduce themselves to the seller because they've never met them personally.
The love letter. Talk about the love letter, Johnny.
Well, the love letter. So basically a buyer would say, hey, my name is so-and-so. Hi, my name is Jimmy. I'm going to buy your house. From Jimmy, I'm going to pick on you. I'm going to use you for a little bit. But if you were to write a letter to introduce yourself to a seller.
Which buyers often want to do because they think it's going to give them an advantage, right?
And it does.
Well, it can.
I would say that it does. I think it is helpful. The power of small ties. You know, Jimmy, thank you for your service. But let's just say the seller was also in the military as well, and you write a letter to the seller saying, hey, we're brothers, from the Navy, right? Well, would that not help influence that seller's decision?
It might.
Most people say it would.
Sure.
But if they choose you in preferential treatment over, let's just say, someone else, they have inadvertently committed a fair housing violation, even though that most people, they wouldn't even think of it that way.
That's right.
Right? So we have to really approach this in a kind of I don't know, a safe manner.
We just keep the walls up, right?
Right.
So I'm going to protect my seller every time from even knowing that information. And so buyers get frustrated because we won't share that buyer's letter, which, by the way, came on advice from the state of Ohio. And I think NAR has given that advice too.
Right.
That it is in our client's best interest, our seller's best interest, to just not even share the information.
Correct.
Because I don't care who writes that love letter, there's going to be something in there that identifies something about the buyer. It's kind of the point of the letter.
Well,
that opens up the seller to a discrimination lawsuit.
Everything is a protected class when you want to boil it down. It's such a gray area.
That's exactly right. And I think what we see in the Whoopi case is, again, not getting into politics, but Whoopi has certain strong opinions, right?
Sure.
And so it's the old adage that when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Right.
And so when you have someone who's wired already to be on alert for discrimination situations, and they don't get a house, that's their first go-to. Now, what we see is all the other negotiation, all the other offers. They may not have gotten a house because they weren't cash like the accepted offer was,
right?
Or they had different inspection requirements, or different loan type.
Anything.
Yeah, I can honestly tell you, I don't believe in my career over 1,000 closings that I've ever had one seller discriminate against a buyer for anything other than they just like the offer better, right?
And it can boil down to a coin toss. Two offers can be so damn close that it could be full price cash, and maybe one was just submitted earlier, which maybe the seller thought they were more aggressive with it, and that's why they went with it. I mean, it could be down to the very, very finite details. We can't influence that decision any more than we can the weather. But when you have this opinion, like you said, when you're a hammer, all you see is nails. What you see is all there is.
Right.
There has to be a reason they didn't accept my offer, and no, that corrupted racist agent didn't deliver it, and this is why. I have a complaint right here on my desk, not from Fair Housing, but there was not even more than a year ago. I had a buyer that had wanted to make an offer, I should say, on a property over in Flushing that had already sold. I'm not saying it was under contract. I'm saying the deal was done.
Sold.
It was sold. New owner, deed recorded. It was done in the books. They called the day after the closing. I had to tell them that it was under new ownership. They filed a complaint at the state of Ohio, at the Department of Commerce, and said, I refuse to deliver their offer. it was dismissed immediately because I just turned the deed in and said, "Hey guys, here's the date of the complaint. Here's the date of the new deed.
Yeah.
You do the math." But again, I was under this, and imagine if that was a fair housing complaint. And
Sure.
And the thing is once the jury is out, once that news article hits, once it's out there, when we see smoke, we always believe that it's a full-blown structure fire.
That's right.
A lot of times it could be some yuppie idiot just doing donuts in the Lowe's parking lot, Jimmy.
But okay, I'm glad that was aimed at Jimmy because I might have been there too.
Oh, we've all been there. Who has not peeled tire in a Walmart parking lot in their youth?
It happens.
It happens. But at any rate, you see what you see is all there is, and we try to combat that as aggressively as possible.
I had this happen to me one time too. It kind of really caught me off guard. So I have a client who was a minority and was living in a very large, I want to say 3,000 square foot Victorian era home built in the late 1800s, early 1900s. Was selling that home. We were out looking at other properties. Most of what we were looking at were similar to where that client lived at the time.
Sure.
There was one that was in Bethlehem, and it was a split entry built in 1976. Mm-hmm. And she gave me the address, and I said, "Oh, really? I'm kind of surprised you want to see this." Her immediate reaction was, "Why is that?"
Right.
And I thought, "Whoa, wait. Because it's nothing like the house you live in now."
Right.
So, or anything else we looked at. But her immediate thought was, I'm steering her, didn't think she wanted to be in that neighborhood. Jimmy, I'm going to be like Jimmy. He says, don't be like Jimmy. We're going to be like Jimmy. Anyway, I don't have a discriminatory bone in my body. I'll sell you any house you want to buy in any neighborhood you want to buy.
Right.
I don't care what color you are. I don't care how old you are. I don't care whether you're I care if you're in the military. That's kind of awesome. But,
right.
I'll sell you you live right next door to me. I don't care.
Right.
But we did see that's how, in some situations, how sensitive it can be and how close you can be to these claims. Mm-hmm. So we do take that responsibility very seriously for our sellers. When the offers start to come in, we're not sharing that information. I'm sharing as little as I possibly can about the buyer so they can't even be accused. Right. I don't think most sellers. Jimmy, you interrupt our flow sometimes. Like I'm riffing here, I'm rolling along, and I see a pop up from Jimmy, and I'm like, I got to stop and
keeps us on our
that.
toes.
He definitely does. And I lost my train of thought. So
but you're right. We sit so close to the fire sometimes, and the fire itself is provoked. It's stoked by the personal belief, even though that we're not doing anything wrong or trying to instigate any further issue. Mm-hmm. So again, if we refuse to deliver your letter, or if you're a seller and a buyer has one and you ask us to deliver it, we're basically saying no because we're held to a standard that requires us not to. And not just for ourselves, but even for the clients involved. It's kind of funny, too, because there's such a gray area. So, for example, I am completely within my rights to say this is a single-family home. This is a multiple-family home. However, I can't tell you that this home would be great for a family. Now, you make sense of that. Right?
That's exactly
we can't do it. There's things like even as far as being a landlord and owner. Let's just say there's a protected class that you don't even know about. We just talked about this off camera, but what about hoarding? Did you know hoarding is considered a mental illness through the ADA and that it is protected by the FHA? So if you're a landlord and someone is now hoarding property and it's now becoming a very unhygienic and doing damage to your house, going against that, trying to evict them for that purpose is basically breaching their fair housing rights.
So I'll share another example. I've owned a lot of rental
Praise
property in my
Scott's
day.
memory. I just saw that.
I've owned a lot of rental property in my day, and I've always had a policy that we didn't allow pets.
Right.
Just a pretty strict no
here we
pets
go.
policy. And so I'd get someone that would say, "Oh, can I just please have my little puppy or my little cat?" And even if I wanted to allow that, if I do, I just open myself up to a discrimination claim from everyone who I denied that same
correct
right to, right? And so why did that person get to have their dog and I wasn't? I wasn't allowed. And so we just have to be on total alert for this. We do take this very seriously. Now, I will say, in the industry, I don't know that I've run into anyone, any of our fellow professionals, our colleagues, lenders, other agents, who I've sensed any discrimination from. Like that's just not a thing.
No.
Now, clients have made some comments to me that I wasn't very comfortable with. And again, we're going to shield them from such a claim. But I believe our industry, at least in our area, is great in this way. However, we did just hear that we have now secret shoppers contacting agents to test for this. We're being put to the test.
It's all over the news.
It's all over the news that I don't know if it's a judicial department or.
I'm not sure where they come from or who they're paid by, but there are people, at least, I don't know that they made it to the Ohio Valley, but the news story says the Ohio Valley area, greater
It
area.
was specifically Pennsylvania and West Virginia.
Right.
And they were going to be on the lookout for fair housing violations.
Right.
Which is great. So if you're an agent now, someone calls you about seeing some properties, you get them to sign a buyer broker contract, they may literally be wasting your time.
Well, maybe.
Well, they might be.
I guess,
right?
Yeah.
So,
because they're not going to buy, obviously.
But they might run you around and make you show them 5 houses and see if you steer them towards one neighborhood or another.
For every pro, or con, there's a, yeah. I mean, if it helps with the industry by getting rid of those that would, but again, in our experience, I don't know that many exist.
I think this is a solution looking for a problem is what this is. I don't believe the problem really exists. Frankly, most real estate agents I know are more than happy to sell anyone anything at any time.
I'll sell your cat. What was that Laney's quote?
Laney Ross is famous for saying, "I'll list your cat for sale if you'll pay me a 6% commission."
Right. Which again, yeah, I mean, we are offering a service to say, hey, we're here. I tell my clients, I'll lay in traffic for you. I'll do push-ups in traffic for you.
This is true. I've seen him do this.
Right. Stopping traffic just to get 10 in for the morning exercise routine. But
well,
no,
is that because you ran out of gas? Is that why you stopped in traffic, John?
Maybe. I've done a lot of stupid things for stupid reasons. But the point is that we're here to help, and we are tied to this. We're tethered to it by these laws that are created, whether they're good, whether they're bad, whatever. We don't want to sit here and stop people from wanting to move forward. Everyone has, what do they say? The road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
So your love letter, for example, it was all about good intent. When I have to tell you that, hey, by the way, this could help your position as a buyer if it's received. Jimmy, if you're a seller and someone brings you a pre-approval letter. Even how about this? We never talked about this yet. Let's take Jimmy's case. If someone comes in and offers a VA loan versus a conventional loan, but Jimmy accepts it because it's from the VA, is that not a fair housing violation because you made a decision based off it? Most people will go with conventional because it's an easier loan.
Right.
But
I mean,
not
there's a brotherhood in the military. My daughter's in the military.
But that's not a love letter. That's a pre-approval letter.
And we can't hide that, right? Because a seller is going to know what kind of financing the buyer is doing. So all we can do is advise them and say, look, it would be a fair housing violation if you favor this offer for that reason.
Right.
Now tell us what you want to do.
Right. And again, but making that decision based off of that exclusivity.
Yeah.
Am I saying that right?
Well, yeah.
It would be fair housing, which blows our minds because it's done with a practical, rational, anybody at face value would understand it. But to go against that, is discriminating.
Yep. Jimmy says that, John, you showed some leg to sell his house.
We said we wouldn't talk about that.
He's tried that trick on some other clients, and they ended up coming and working with me instead for some reason. I don't know.
I have a face made for radio.
And yet we put you on this podcast every week.
Most people are listening. But we are live.
We call them the lucky ones.
And we got this new lighting, if it's not, and the big old sign in the background. So, round of applause. How about a like spike for the sign in the background?
That'd be cool.
Yeah. But now getting back to the point here. So we just have to be protective, I should say, of what we do, how we do it, and have a good understanding of where this is coming from. So when we give this advice of saying, hey, this ESA letter, we don't want to go, I don't know. Well, what about some of the restrictions that you can almost discriminate, right? How about things like senior housing, right? The 65 plus housing. There are protected classes for protected classes.
Yeah, it's true. And there are certain rules about senior housing that are a little bit different, but that stuff's all called out in law.
Right.
What we see every day is just people trying to buy, people trying to sell, agents trying to make that happen. And the last thing we want to do is let some nonsensical discrimination, political views. We don't care. We're here to help people, right?
Right.
That's what we do. We're going to do it within the law. It's not hard. We don't have to try, like we said earlier.
It's kind of crazy, too, because some of the area that we live in, we're the oldest section of the country. And we have grown as a country, east to west. So there are even things that we see every so often. We get a glimpse of what it was like back during maybe a more, I'll call it a different time, deed restrictions.
We've seen some wild deed restrictions, haven't
very
we?
wild deed restrictions that are in the area. So it's some that I've seen from churches.
Yeah.
I mean, it just is, it blows your mind to see of how far that we've come. But it's, again, stuff that we have to say, hey, we can't do this. We can't, and this is why.
Yeah. And the advice to the seller is, don't worry about it.
Right.
Like, let's get you the best deal we can. You know, our mission statement has kind of become, our job is to get the best outcome for our clients, and they get to define that outcome.
Right.
For most sellers, that outcome is sell my property for as much money as you can, as efficiently as possible, right? And so that's what we focus on. It's very rare that a seller comes at us with a preferred outcome of sell it except to, you know, these kinds of people or this kind of person. And of course, we wouldn't take that listing if that was, you know, what they were looking for.
Right. And for the record, we are actually held to a standard as well that if we know that someone is doing these things, we are obligated to report it to the states of where it's happening. So those testers that are in the area, hey, you can pack your bags. If we see it, we're going to do your job for you.
That's exactly right. All right, Johnny, so we got, what, about a week left in your giveaway?
We are at 123 subscribers, so 98.4% of our goal.
Two more subscribers.
Jimmy,
Jimmy, you don't have two friends out there? Come on, man.
Yeah, but we're growing. Anyways, December 2nd, I think we're going to do a preliminary podcast maybe coming up. We're going to do a test race, but we got everything functioning. It's basically the marble race. Jimmy, we did one of these test races off of stream yesterday, and your marble won. I had to show you, Scott got to see your marble racer name for the first time.
Yeah, that was awesome. Now, the bad news, Jimmy, is the chances of you winning twice in a row are almost zero.
Well,
so.
they're not going to be twice in a row.
Sorry, dude. It's going to someone else.
Right. Yeah, maybe. It's all RNG. That's a fancy math way of saying luck. But anyway.
I'm kind of bummed because the
I'm sharing.
the giant 4-foot Game Boy's been here at the office, and we're having way too much fun with this thing. I don't want to give it away.
Oh, man. What were you just playing? GTI?
GTI Club.
GTI Club.
So I'm a hardcore Volkswagen guy, and I didn't know there was a video game called GTI Club. Like, come on, man. How am I supposed to get any work done around here?
Yeah. So every day is a new learning experience in the office now. But social media plug, don't forget to follow us on YouTube, Facebook. We're on Instagram Live now. Obviously, Spotify is a big one. This is the whole reason for this giveaway.
Yes, find us on Spotify. We're really trying to grow the Spotify audience.
But, all right, any other words of wisdom that we need to impart with?
No, man, gearing up for the holiday season. Can't wait for the giveaway. We got some fun stuff coming. Jimmy. Yeah, I saw Jimmy's comment.
Just keep looking over at a glance. My marble will show some leg. Hey, whatever gets the job done.
All right, man, sounds good. Looking forward to getting those last couple subscribers in place. Can't wait for this giveaway. Can't wait to see everybody next week.
Sounds good. We'll see you guys next time.